Bienvenue chez Parfum Prononcé. Welcome to Parfum Pronounced. Aujourd'hui, il n'y aura pas beaucoup besoin de parler français. Today, there's not going to be a whole heck of a lot of need to talk French or de vous faire apprendre les prononciations or to kind of teach any sort of pronunciation or anything like that. Here and there, I'll speak a little French, but I'll explain myself afterward. Maybe you can pick on some things here and there. But yeah, today I'm going to be unburdening myself au sujet de Creed, Aventus, and aussi experience or impression of Club de Nuit Intense Man. Club de Nuit Intense Man by Armaf. And hopefully I'll be able to, I don't know, I'm just gonna kind of throw it out there and talk about my experience with the House of Creed, and my experience with Aventus, which is more than average, but not, crazy. And then how that experience, my experience with Aventus, being an Aventus head for a while, kind of informs my opinion that I have on Club de Nuit Intense Man, CDNIM. Okay, and also thank you to the people who have subscribed to this channel. I mean, it's like icing on the cake. I'm gonna do these videos anyway, and I'll never ask anybody to subscribe to this me ranting in my basement about some goofy hobby that I'm into. But if you do, it's always appreciated, and it's like icing on the cake. I already have the cake. I already have an opportunity to talk about the things, something that I love, and to have other people just show that love is awesome. And so I really appreciate it. So, and when I originally envisioned this podcast, or not this podcast, this YouTube, whatever, I kind of wanted it to be like a podcast. If you know Bill Burr's Monday morning podcast, where he just kind of talks to himself, he doesn't even have guests on. That's kind of what this is for me, in a way. I try not to be, I try to keep it to roughly on a subject, but sometimes it's just going to meander, and, yeah, so that's what it is. So again, bienvenue, welcome, et merci, thank you for watching. But okay, so here we go. So Aventus, once you hear about Creed, which I did and I may have shared this story before, but I was shopping, I was perfume shopping, I was helping my sister pick out a perfume for herself, and we were at like a little fragrance outlet at an outlet mall. And talking or whatever, and the lady's trying to sell me stuff, obviously, and she's like, well, have you smelled this, have you smelled that, and I've smelled this. I'm like, yeah, like, you don't need to tell me anything, lady, like, but I was polite and just you just got to roll with it, don't be a dick. And she goes, well, have you ever tried Creed? And I had never even heard of that at that point. It was all designers for me, and I was like, no. And I was like, but and she was a nice lady. She wasn't like super pushy. And she's like, well, have you ever heard of Creed? I said, no. She's like, and I was like, well, I'd be happy to try it though. So I'll put my nose on it. And she looked at it, she was like, oh, sweetie, we don't have that here. And I was like, what do you mean you don't have it here? Like, she's like, oh, you have to go to like, I don't even know where you would get it. Like maybe like Neiman Marcus or some sort of high-end department store, you'd have to get it. And from that moment on, I was like, whoa, there's a level above, whatever, Bleu Chanel or whatever, whatever was out at the time when I was collecting. I had no idea. So immediately, I'm looking up it on my phone as we're walking out. My sister ended up getting Angel by Thierry Mugler. She ended up with that one, which is a great one. I have Amen. I have Angel Man, I guess. So, which is a very interesting scent. Definitely not a blind buy. But I was looking them up, looking up prices and discounters, and I discovered FragranceNet and all that kind of stuff. And I was looking up all the reviews that I possibly could about all the different, popular Creed scents. I mean, all of them, basically, except for like their like kind of like their Privé line. That the super high-end limited batch stuff. But all the usual ones, I was looking them up and finding ones that I think would hit my palate and think would please me or whatever. And obviously I was going to blind buy it because that's what I was going to do. I didn't know where I would sell them, whatever. So, but I saw Aventus was a little bit more than what I was wanting to spend, or a little bit more than what I had, or a little bit more than what I didn't have but didn't want to put on my credit card, I guess. And so I guess having Creed Aventus up there, and me wanting to sort of chase that in a way, I started ordering, my first one, I mentioned it, was Original Vetiver, because that was the first note in perfumery that I was able to be like, oh yeah, that's I know what vetiver is. That's a note that I can distinguish in a fragrance. So got Original Vetiver. I've talked about that, and I enjoyed that. And then I got Bois du Portugal, which I've talked about in my blind buying video. And then from there, every time I would every time, I'd get a paycheck or whatever. At the time I was a single guy, had a, full-time job, I have a degree, I don't make great money, but I'm just a single guy, so I had some disposable income. And every time I went on to check, Creed, and this was back in the day. This was like 2015 or 2016. And they were going off at that point. They were still making the lovely, beautiful, beautiful 120 mils, I want to say, the square bottles that they don't make anymore, much to my chagrin. And they were always just too expensive. The Aventus was just too expensive. So I would always look up like the next best thing, or try to find the next best thing to Aventus in terms of how it was rated on FragranceNet, or excuse me, Fragrantica, or Base Notes, or whatever. And I went through all of them. I just kept, every time I wanted to buy Aventus, I ended up buying something else because it was a little bit cheaper. It was a little bit more in my price range. It was niche. It was Creed. It was supposed to be awesome, blah, blah, blah. So I bought so many Creed fragrances before I even bought Aventus, before I was able to catch it at a price that that was digestible for me, I guess. So I owned and have, I'll talk about the ones that I still own and the ones that I've sold. I own Millésime Impérial, so Millésime Imperial. I own Arolfa. I own Royal Oud, Himalaya, Silver Mountain Water, Green Irish Tweed. I want to, Neroli Sauvage, which I think is beautiful, but the performance is terrible. It's gotten better over the years though, because it's been like 5 years since I bought it. It's gotten better. And there may be one or two other, like, of the common ones that you see for the Creed ones that I own. I also have owned and sold. I owned Royal Water in the 120, and that was terrible. I did not like that for me. That was not. It was like peppermint mixed with fir, or like some kind of. It was nauseating. It was nauseating, Royal Water. For me, it was nauseating. I hated it. I tried to like it, and I sold it, and I got some money back. And I owned, I owned Royal Mayfair, which I think used to be called Windsor. And it just smelled like a dusty rose, and it made me sneeze, and I didn't like it, and so I sold that one. And what was the other one that I sold? Oh yeah, okay, so Virgin Island Water I owned, and I sold that, not because it was a bad fragrance, not because it necessarily turned me off, or the performance was bad or anything like that. The performance was pretty good. I felt like it was a solid, for what it was solid. But that vibe, just coconut, I should have known before I bought it that it wasn't gonna come off for me. I thought it might be okay, but it just wasn't. It just didn't do it for me. I'm not a drinker. So like, I didn't want to smell like a pina colada, which is kind of like the thing with Virgin Island Water. It's like a tropical, fragrance or whatever. And it wasn't for me. And despite the fact that, it was pleasant. It was pleasant even for those around me and whatnot. But sitting on my shelf, I just knew I wasn't going to reach for it. And so I sold it. So I sold that one. And then finally, okay, so I'm going to try to keep the dates here as accurate as I can. I got the first time I ordered, I was even still too expensive. The first time that I interacted with Creed Aventus, I ordered a carded sample from FragranceNet. And all of these fragrances that I got from FragranceNet, because that was like, I looked up and they were like, yeah, it's legit, you're not going to get ripped off, blah, blah, blah. And all the ones that I got, all my Creeds, they had the matching batch numbers, batch codes, all that, they were all good. They were all solid. It was all good to go. And so I ordered a carded sample, and it could have been mid 2016, or something along those lines, mid to late 2016. I got a carded sample. I don't know what batch it was. I don't even know if they put the batch on the carded samples. I'm not sure. But it was absolute love at first sight. It was or love at first sniff, rather. I absolutely adored it. I absolutely adored it. It was a little, like, probably 2 mil carded sample or whatever. And it had it, I read that Creed, the Aventus, it was basically like smoky roasted pineapple. And that's what I smelled. And there's something about, man, if you're, everybody has different tastes, but when I put my nose on Creed Aventus, there's something special about it. And me with any fragrance, and it doesn't always happen. It's a rare thing, but I smelled it and I smiled. I just was like, I smiled it was involuntary. I couldn't even control it. I just smiled. I was like, oh my gosh. It just made, like, the fragrance was so appealing and so beautiful to me. I involuntarily could not wipe the smile off my face. Like, I just smiled, and it was great. And from that moment on, I was like, as soon as I see the price of Creed Aventus get to a point where I can digest it, like, I'm buying it. And that happened not too long after that. I got a 120 mil, the beautiful square bottle for $330 plus tax and whatever shipping or whatever. And I got it, and it was 16H01, which now, being a 16 in the Aventus world, is, that's like awesome. Those things fetch 500, if not more. In the know, like 26 or 16H01 isn't necessarily like a super sought after batch, but it was everything that I wanted. It was everything that I wanted, and it hit that mark. The birch, the blackcurrant, the little bit of smokiness, that had probably even diminished a little bit from 2015, because I know at some point they banned, like, birch tar, I want to say, or something like that, or they IFRA dropped the levels of it to the point where you couldn't use much of it anymore. But it still had it, and it was beautiful, and I loved it, and I loved owning it. And I wore it a lot, and I got compliments because I bathed in it. It just smelled so good. I just wanted to be in a cloud of Aventus all day long. It smelled so good to me. It smelled so good to me. And I didn't even care if it smelled good to anybody else, because it smelled so good. Yeah, so I owned that for a while. I owned my 16H01 for a while. And God, I'm trying to think of why I sold it, because I did sell it. I think I was probably, I needed money. I was either, like, my car was getting old at the time, and I was going to get rid of it, and I was going to lease a new car, and I was saving up for a down payment for the lease or whatever. And I was like, I knew I could get some money for it, so I sold it. And I sold it to the luckiest man on earth. He got a 16HL1 with about 105 to 110 mils left in it, for $200. Yeah. That still hurts. To think about. But I didn't know as much as I know now. I didn't know that it was going to appreciate like it does. and I didn't know. I just didn't know what I had at the moment. You know what I mean? I knew I had something special, but I didn't know what I had. So yeah, I sold that, and then I was without Aventus for a while. I was out of Aventus for a while. I was even not even collecting or buying a ton of fragrances for a while. Yeah, I really wasn't. I was, I just kind of fell out of it, needed money for other things, what have you. And I would buy things here and there at a department store. I think I remember around that time I first got the original Dioram, the Iris one, the one, the classic one that everybody thinks is awesome, and it's beautiful. But that was another scent. But yeah, I went without Aventus for quite a while, a couple years actually. And then I was with my at the time she was my fiance, now she's my wife. And we were living together, and the two incomes made it a little bit easier to to pay the rent, and I had a little bit more money hanging around or whatever, and I was like, you know what, I want my Aventus back. I wanted that back. And so I went on to fragrancenet.com, and I assumed that I was going to get the same thing. I assumed that I was going to get what I had in 2016. I really did. I was like, I'm going to get that back. I want that back. That's why I paid what I paid for it. And at this point there were the 100 mils with the little, that style of bottle. And in my opinion, if it's not a 50 mil and it looks like that, I don't want it. I mean, that sounds so, I don't know, elitist, I guess, but yeah, I mean, unless it's a 50 mil, if your bottle goes like that, I don't want it. It doesn't have any interest for me, especially Aventus. But anyway, yeah, so, but, whatever, that's all I had. I looked for a couple days, or even a couple weeks, looking for that 4 ounce or 120 mil basically to pop up, and it wouldn't. The only thing they had was the 100 mils, and when you order from Fragrance Net, somewhere like that, you can't specify the batch. They're not going to let you know what batch it is. So they sent me whatever they had, and it was I got I want to say, and I could be wrong, but I want to say I got the first reform batch. Okay. So I got 19Y01N. For those of you not balls deep in the fragrance or in the Aventus game, it's 2019. Y01 is the batch. I mean, that's like the last couple letters of the batch code. And then the N was the new thing because it meant like new formulation or it had been reformulated, because I'm not, in the industry or anything, but I think they banned, or they at least like diminished the amount of an aroma chemical, a lily I believe it's a lily of the valley aroma chemical called Lyrol or Lyrol or whatever, Lyral. And so they reformulated it, and that was I believe I had the first one, 19Y01N was the first one, and I got it. Super excited to get it. I have my Aventus back, and I'm opening it up, and I spray it, and there's something about Aventus that will never go away, and that makes Aventus special. And it was there. It was there in my 19Y01N. It was there. I could smell it. I smiled when I smelled it. And but it wasn't the same. It wasn't my 2016. It wasn't. It didn't have the kind of birchy, the heavy birchy, smoky, even borderline smoky-ish. Was pretty much gone. It was more, it was more fruity. It was more fruity, a little bit of vanilla. The black currant, the musk, so it was still Aventus, and it was still beautiful, but it wasn't what I had. And then it's the biggest part, the most important part, and why Creed Aventus gets crapped on so badly now, as opposed to back in the day. The performance, and yes, it was a new bottle, and yes, I do truly believe that Creed fragrances, at least, do get better over time. If you let them sit, if you use them every once in a while, spray them, let some air get in the bottle, they will mature and they will get better over time. Okay. So I had my 19Y01N. I wore it a bunch, not a ton, but I wore it often enough because I didn't plan on buying any more, really, at the moment. I really wanted to just be satisfied with it. I wanted to be satisfied with it and to be like, that's it. And then when this one runs out, I'll buy another one, you know? But the performance was just abysmal. It was abysmal. It was abysmal. It was abysmal. There's no other word for it. It was abysmal. And I understand. Listen, I understand. I get it. Anosmia, right? Nose blindness is a thing that can happen, especially with Aventus. You know, it's very common in Aventus, where you know you'll be smelling like it, but you won't smell it because you've been smelling it all day, and you get that nose fatigue, and you're not picking it up anymore. But a lot of times when you're wearing a fragrance like that, even if you are going anosmic to it, you know, if you're moving around or whatever, you're going back and forth with your head, you know, this kind of thing, you're making movements, you're walking around, or you'll sit down in a chair and then like it'll come back. You'll get a whiff of it, you know, throughout the day. And that did not happen. That did not happen. So that kind of took away some of the force of that argument, of the anosmia argument, in my head, and I was like, this is bad. Like this performance is terrible. This is freaking terrible. And I paid $300 and some for this, and it's just not work. You know, I was sour. I was sour at that. And then I got on to an Aventus group. It's on Facebook, which I highly recommend, and I may have occasion later on in the video to talk more about it. It's called Aventus Addicts, and I haven't been on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. I despise Facebook. And so I left Facebook, and when I left Facebook, you know, I wasn't on the group anymore, but it's called Aventus Addicts. And at the time when I was in there, I mean, it was a great group. It was a great group. There were a lot of really good dudes on there, willing to share their information, their opinions. You know, you'd get excellent deals on fragrances, whether they're decants or whatever. You could enter like waffles, right, to win decants and stuff like that. I entered a couple of them, and I actually won one. I got a 30 ml decant of 16K11, I want to say. It's the one with like the licorice-ish kind of vibe to it, like heavy blackcurrant licorice vibe, which is very beautiful, and solid. I still have it actually, because I want to kind of keep conserving it. But yeah, that's a great group. So anyway, I became a member of Aventus Addicts, which again, at that time, I don't know of anything now, but it was run by really great dudes. The moderators were excellent, classy fellas. I think some of them even created their own little fragrance company or whatever to sell high-end niche fragrances. And I actually bought Aventus cologne from them. But yeah, so hopefully it's still an awesome group. And it's a great resource if you're looking for, you know, Creed Aventus and you don't want to maybe pay retail or even the discounter's price. I would say go there 100%, and you can name check people. You can legit check people if somebody's selling you something. I remember I bought this is a little bit after I had accumulated a couple more bottles. But I wanted like a decant. I wanted a 50 ml decant, just to kind of wear while my other bottles just kind of sat and matured and gained in value. And I posted. I was like, I got $100 and I want 50 mils. I don't care what you got, what it is. I don't care. I just need something to spray on, something that's gonna smell like Aventus. And you know, a guy talked to me, he contacted me, he's like, hey man, I got a Frankenbatch. And if you don't know what a Frankenbatch is, a lot of times in the groups or in general, people will have like small amounts of a bunch of different batches from a bunch of different years, and they just throw them all in a flacon and they decant it out. And that's called a Frankenbatch, because like Frankenstein, a lot of different pieces get put together to make it. And he was like, you know, I got this, you know, I got basically 50 mils with a mag cap for, you know, $100. And I was like, good. And I name checked them on the group. I was like, hey guys, this, you know, is this gentleman good to do business with? And within 5 minutes, you know, I had 20 people hit me up on instant, or, you know, on the messenger of Facebook, being like, dude, do not hesitate. Like, this guy is solid. He was, you know, trust that your money is safe and that you're going to get what you pay for. And Sure enough, I did. Excellent guy. His first name is Renato or Renato. I don't know how he pronounced it, but I won't give his last name. Um, yeah, so I acquired that from him. But okay, so that's a little bit later in my story. Back to 19Y01N. I owned that for a little bit. And then, like I said, I was disappointed with it. I was disappointed with 19Y01N. And I was chasing that dragon, you know what I mean? Like, and if you know what that means, then God bless you for making it through that. But I wanted that old school Aventus that brought so much joy, you know. I wanted that back. I wanted to get as close as I could, you know. And in the groups, you know, different batches when they come out, they get hyped on the groups and blah blah blah. And some people are, you know, just hyping them just because they have a couple extra bottles and they want to sell them. But other ones, you know, they're being genuine and, you know, stuff like that. And 19S11 at that time was a hot one. It was 19S11. That was a hot one that was going off. People were talking about it. It was great. It was balanced. It was, you know, it was a good Aventus to own. And that was one of the batches that I looked up for some reason. There was so much good talk about it, and I was like, all right. When I went on eBay and I bought it, I want to say from the eBay store Fine Sense. I want to say that's the name of it. And bought 19S11 from him. I paid three something for it, you know, and it was the 100 mil because they weren't making the old ones anymore. And got it, and it was better than the 19Y01N. It was better, okay, but it still wasn't exactly what it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect, right? So at that point, I have two bottles of Aventus, and they're both 19s, full bottles, full pres, and I'm like, okay, well, this still isn't quite hitting it for me, so maybe I need to go back a year, you know, and I'm looking at 18s and people are posting about 18s and they're talking about 18s or whatever. Because every year, you know, like whatever year, you know, the longer you get, the further away you get, the more valued those older scents get. You know, every year that passes, the older one gets, you know, more attention to it. And so I started looking at 18s and trying to figure out which 18 got the best, people had the best thing to say about. And one of them was 18B01, and the people were hot about, or some people enjoyed it, and they said it was really balanced, and it had some of the, you know, the modern-ish twist with the fruit and the vanilla, but also had a little bit of the old school birchiness to it, and so I got that one, and that one was better. That one was better than the 19Y01N and the 19S11. The 18B01 was better than that. And it's just it's a vicious cycle you can get into. And so I'm like, okay, well, that hit it. So maybe a different 18 will get me even closer. And this is me spending stupid money on freaking Aventus. You know, stupid money. And then people were talking a lot about 18G11. And it's like one of those batches that has Hulk, what they kind of like Hulk juice, they call it, where the tint of the juice is like dark. It's like darker than the other ones. And, you know, obviously when you see something like that, a lot of people tend to think, oh, it's stronger, it's better, blah, 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 Hulk juice, you know, that kind of stuff. And so 18G11, I didn't get it off the group or anything. I actually went on Mercari, and a dude, a fella on there was selling his. He said it was COVID at that time. You know, we were going through COVID and people were selling their stuff because they needed money. And that was basically his justification for getting rid of his bottle. He's like, I love this, but I need money and I got to get rid of it. And so, and it was full Prezi, you know, which means the box, the cap, the cards, everything, you know, you're getting it, you know, everything is full presentation as if you were picking it up from the store. It just been used like a little bit. And I want to say, and by a little bit, I mean like less than 5 mils. Probably, yeah. And I pulled the trigger on that one, and I got 18G11, and 18G11 was amazing. It was amazing, but it was amazing for a different reason. It was so tangy. It was so tangy and fruity. It was awesome, and it had some oomph to it. It had some longevity to it. it had some beastliness to it. And I like that, right? I like that. And then, Aventus Cologne came out. So at that point, I had a 19 Y01N, I had 19 S11, I had 18 B01, and I had 18 G11. So those were the batches that I had. And if you're not into Aventus, some of that doesn't make any sense to you, or you don't care, or whatever. But I'm just talking about Aventus and my experience, and then how that's going to roll into this Club de Nuit Intense Man by Armaf. Just kind of justify my bona fides in terms of I know what I'm talking about. Now that isn't to say that there aren't, because believe me, once you get on that group, Aventus Addicts, there are cats on there who have collections that would, I mean, absolute ballers. I'm talking like, if it's not the 4 ounce, if it's not the 120 mil 4 ounce bottle, and it's not like 16 or older, they're not even interested in it. They're not even interested. Like, it's they are masters. And there's this one dude in that group. His first name is John. I won't give his last name, but he's very popular in that group, or at least he was. God bless him if he's still around. I hope he is. I hope he's doing well. And I had questions. He was the first one that answered one of my questions about that I posted in that group. And he was really nice and friendly, and and I was like, I'm trying to find 816H01, like, help me out. And does anybody have that? And, for this price or whatever. And the guy's like, dude, honestly, he's like, you're gonna have a really hard time, like, for that, anyway, he's really nice. That group is awesome. I mean, it's an Aventus group, so you would think it's like really douchey and a bunch of douchebags. It really wasn't, man. There were some really cool cats in there, and I miss being on it, but not enough to get back on Facebook because I hate Facebook. Where was I? So those are the ones that I owned, and then Aventus Cologne came out. Right around that time. And, I'm like, okay, whatever, like, this sounds really cool, fresher take on Aventus. It was getting a lot of attention. It was a new Creed release, and it was an Aventus Cologne. And anytime, Creed doesn't really release frags like super, super often. So when they do, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is probably pretty good, And, I bought from the two chaps, or a couple fellas from the, and I'm not from the UK, but sometimes I use some of their slang. The two fellas who were in charge of that group, moderators of that group, had their own little company, and I won't name them in case they weren't properly licensed or anything like that. But I ordered a bottle of Aventus Cologne, 100 ml bottle of Aventus Cologne. I got the 19X01. 19X01 was the batch that I got, and which I want to say is one of the first batches of Aventus Cologne. I could be wrong, but it's one of the very early ones. And I got that, and I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't super juiced about it. Like, I wasn't super happy about it. To me, it smelled like Versace Pour Homme with a little bit of birch and a little bit smoother, made with better ingredients. And I literally posted that in the group. I was like, y'all are tripping. This smells like Versace Pour Homme. Like, and if you could give me, if you told me that I could not sell, there was no resale value to my bottle of Aventus Cologne, which is the only reason that I would want to hang on to it. And instead of that, you could give me the same amount in value of Versace Pour Homme bottles of that, I would take the Versace Pour Homme. Like, it serves the same freaking purposes. They're so similar in my mind, like, in the sense of a summer, like an awesome summer scent. So anyway, yeah, I got that. So, all right. So I'm at that point. Now I have 5 bottles of Aventus, basically, 19Y01N, S11, 18B01, 18G11, and now the Aventus Cologne. Man. And then, God, what made me start to get rid of them? Probably money. I realized I kind of started to feel guilty a little bit about having spent so much money on silly fragrances, trying to chase that first whiff of that 16 that I had. And I just realized that I didn't need all those. I didn't need them all. I didn't need it. It's stupid. It's not stupid. It's fun to collect it. But, I don't make that much money, so I don't need to have that, So I had to take a step back and ended up selling a couple of my bottles. And the first one I sold was the 19Y01N. Sold. I don't know what I got for it. I was gonna look up the eBay, what post that I sold it for, but it was in the twos, something like that. It wasn't three. I sold it for somewhere in the twos to a fella who I almost feel bad for. I mean, he got a legit full Prezi bottle of Aventus. Like, there's no question. There's no question about that. Like, it was legit. So I don't feel bad in that regard. But I feel bad if he wanted something that, and he ended up with something that wasn't going to pay off for him. And I knew that. I mean, I knew it. I knew Aventus, and I knew that batch was not the hitter. But sold that one. And then the next one, I made a couple bucks on that, and I was like, okay, all right, what's the next one I want to sell? And that was S11. It was a 19 S11. Got rid of that one, sold that one on eBay probably, or Mercari, or probably eBay actually. And got, in the high twos for that. Got some money back for that one. And then I decided that I was going to hang on to my 18s because I saw what was happening in the groups, and I saw once the 17s at that time, and God, this is like COVID, so 2020, I want to say somewhere around there, era, and I saw that the 17s were starting, people were putting them into groups, bottles for $300 plus for the 17s. And I'm talking like late year 17s, like 17Y something, that was like the awesome one or whatever. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, okay, if this is, and then that's when I spotted the maturity, and the appreciation in value of Aventus, even if it wasn't what I had, whatever bottles I had left were going to be worth something in a while, and so that's why I decided to hang on to the 18B01 and 18G11. And I had people hitting me up for the 18G11 because they really wanted it, and I was like, no, I'm going to hang on to it. So, and then I sold my Aventus cologne. It was going to be my summer vacation scent, and I wore it 2 years with my family on vacation. We do have this thing where we go to a lake, and it's beautiful, and that was a scent that I would wear all the time. But honestly, that's the only time I would wear it. And I tried to create like a scent memory with it. But honestly, one day I like reached into my cologne cabinet, and I reached back for Versace Pour Homme, and I sprayed it on, and I was like, I'd freaking rather smell like that. Like, I'd rather smell like that. I'd rather own that. And I'd rather have $250 or $220 or whatever. I can't remember. It was like $260 or something like that I sold it for on Mercari. So I got rid of the 19X01 to a lady who had a son who had his bottle stolen by, they were fostering a kid, and someone stole his bottle of Aventus cologne, which is a bummer, right? She was trying to recoup that. So I was happy to provide that. So yeah, so now, I had those two 18s, and I was like, okay, I'm done buying full bottles. Now what I need, and I had that 16K11, the 30 ml decant that I won in a raffle, waffle. And then I was like, well, I need a daily driver. I just need a bottle of something that I can throw on. Mont Blanc Explorer hadn't come out yet, and I needed just a daily driver, something to throw on when I wanted to wear Aventus. And like I said, I got that Frankenbatch. For $100, 50 mil mag cap, sent to me. It's a very solid dude. Transaction was quick. It was awesome. Like I said, the Aventus Addicts group was great. It was great. So yeah, and that's where I'm at. That's where my collection stands with Creed Aventus. I got those two 18s, the Frankenbatch, and the 16K11 decant. And then, yeah. So that's my history with Creed Aventus, basically. And then, Mont Blanc Explorer came out right around that time, and I smelled that, and I was like, holy crap. Like, I mean, it's not the same, right? Like, it's different. It has a bergamot up top. Like, the top's different. It's not quite as fruity. It's more citrusy. But it was very solid. So, I bought that one just to kind of, further save on having to use actual Aventus. And so I own that one. And that was the only clone clone. I mean, it's a clone. It's a clone. It's a designer clone. It's not like they ran it through, maybe they did run it through that machine, that gas chromatograph, whatever machine that analyzes all the chemicals in perfume, and they just kind of reproduce it. Maybe there was a little bit of that going on with Mont Blanc Explorer, but yeah, so I own that one, and then I didn't really mess around with it for a while. That was what I wore, amongst all my other fragrances that I have. And I didn't think too much about Aventus. And throughout the whole time of this whole thing, I was aware of Armaf's Club de Nuit Intense Man. I knew it. I was aware of it. I had never smelled it. And all it ever had was derision by the Aventus addicts. They always make fun of it. I remember a funny meme. It was like this yoked guy, like bodybuilder, and like a normal guy, and then like a little fat guy, and one of them was like Aventus, Mont Blanc Explorer, and then the skinny little, or the fat guy or whatever, the out of shape guy was CDNIM. And I laughed at it because I wasn't a fan of clones. I'm still not, philosophically speaking, I don't really like that. I don't like, it's just stealing. It's stealing. And unfortunately, it's not like intellectual property, it's perfume, it's a scent, so you can't, it's tough, but I generally don't look favorably upon clones. And okay, so all that being said, my history with Aventus, right? My knowledge of the existence of clones and Club de Nuit Intense Man being by far the most popular, probably because it's also the cheapest, or the cheaper one. I know there's a company called Parfum Vintage, and I own one of theirs. I own Pineapple Vintage that I would layer with, I don't know, whatever creed I had. But they're not high dollar fragrances, but they're more expensive. They're 2 to 3 times expensive as Club de Nuit. 2 to 3 times expensive as that. So the Club de Nuit by Armaf is for sure the most popular, the most talked about clone of Aventus, in my opinion. And yeah, so all that to say, it was like literally 2 days ago. It was 2 days ago. And it was after work, and I'm a teacher, so we're getting close to the end of the year, and I've been on like a massive workout schedule, 5 days a week, just really going crazy with it. And I just needed a break. It was even a workout day. I just needed a break. And for me, a break is retail therapy. I like to go and shop for clones and smell stuff. And I looked for, but I knew what Sephora has. I know what Sephora has. Like, I know what Ulta has. I know what's on the shelves at Macy's. Like, I know all that. I don't need to go to those places. So I looked up for like an indie fragrance perfume shop. Like, for, the kinds that you see at the mall, Fragrance Hut, Fragrance Perfumania, Fragrance Outlet, Fragrance whatever, some indie place that has a whole bunch of stuff. And I saw when it was like, less than an hour away. It was less than an hour, it was about a half hour away from where I work. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take this evening for myself. I'm going to make a drive down there. I'm going to smell some stuff, see if there's any discontinued stuff. Because my mother actually found a bottle of, she lives in Florida, and she found a bottle of Armani Mania, which is discontinued, and you can't find it. And she found it at a little perfume shop and she got it for a really good price. And as soon as she told me about it, because it was one of her favorite scents, and she loved it when my stepfather wore it, and it's been gone for so while. So when she saw it, she bought one for my stepfather, and she told me about it, and I was like, get out of here. I was like, that's crazy. I was like, you never see that. I was like, if you go back there again, get me a bottle of that. And then so I have a bottle. I have a 100 ml bottle of Armani Mania full press. It's nice. It's gone a little bit. It's not quite as sharp up top as it probably was, but it's still nice. I'm glad that I own it. And so that's me going there. I walk in there, and I'm trying to pretend that I'm not like there for a specific reason. And I know more than the guy who's behind the counter, and I know what he's going to do when you walk into one of those places. It's like, here, smell this. Let me spray it on a card, and they're handing it to you. And it's like, come on, bro. Like, whatever. I don't, you know, and most of the time it's like an Armaf one, to be totally honest. But this one was like a Ajmal, AJMAL one that he was spraying on stuff. And, you know, I was being polite, but, you know, I'd smell it and be, oh yeah, that's nice. You know, and then I'm just scanning the shelves and I see Higher by Dior. I want to say it's just called Higher. And I'm like, and I know that's discontinued. Although I think you could still get it on discounters. And I'm like, and he had a tester bottle out for it, which a lot of times in those places, they don't always have tester bottles out. So you got to blind buy. And there was a tester bottle out. And I was like, hey, can I smell that Dior Higher? You know, I sprayed it or whatever. And I'm using that to kind of make him leave me alone. Cause I'm like smelling it, I'm looking at it, and I'm like in my head, I'm like trying to make him think that I'm like debating on buying it, right? As I'm looking for something that I'm actually gonna buy because it was dank. It wasn't for me. It wasn't what I wanted. It was cool and it got a little bit better on the card over time. But anyway, I'm looking, and I don't think I tried anything else other than the two crap things that he was, you know, trying to sell me. I didn't really see anything that was discontinued or something really rare or whatever. Nothing crazy was catching my attention. And also, side note, and I apologize, so whenever you go into a place like that, this is just general advice for when you're fragrance shopping at a fragrance outlet that's not a Sephora, Ulta, or anything else like that. The price that the guy tells you is not the price, not necessarily the price. And I'll tell you my experience at one of those places before I knew what I was talking about, before I knew what I was doing. I walked into a place just like that, and I wanted to go there for some vetiver scent, and I was looking at like Guerlain's vetiver, and there was another one. He's like, oh, vetiver, you know, yeah. I mean, he was from India, and you know, God bless, you know, but that's how he talked, and he's like, oh, well, you should try this one. And he sprayed Encre Noire by Lalique. Encre Noire by Lalique. Okay. He sprayed that on a card and I smelled that and I was like, ooh, that's pretty. That is pretty. That is nice. And I bought it for $90. $90. I bought it for $90. Didn't know how much you could get it for. Online. I remember I got the bottle, you know, I'm like, oh yeah, I just got an awesome scent. It smells wonderful, beautiful. It's got that kind of like, you know, dark vetiver-ish nature to it with the, you know, massive amounts of ISO-E super. And then I get to my car, I look on my phone, and I type in the name of the fragrance, and I see all the shopping ads that pop up for that fragrance and how much it costs. $30. And I was like, if I wasn't smart enough to know that if I walked back in that perfume store and tried to get a refund, they would laugh in my face. That's what I would have done if I wasn't smart enough. That's what would have happened. So I had to bite that one. So do your research. And if you see something in one of those stores that catches your attention, or you smell something that's like, oh, that's awesome, I gotta have that, put it down, go for a walk, look it up online, and then when you come back in, be like, hey, this scent right here that I was smelling before, I can get it online for whatever amount. How much are you selling it for? And then you're going to get a different price. And that's exactly what played out in this situation the other day when I'm at the fragrance outlet. I see, and there's a tester for it, I see this gaudy, disgusting looking bottle of Club de Nuit Intense Man by Armaf. Look at this stupid thing. Look at it. It's bejeweled. It's got a necklace. It's bejeweled and it has a necklace. This is the douchiest bottle I've ever seen in my life. They should fix all that. It's even got it's bejeweled. It's got a necklace. It's so stupid. Even if that alone, like if I was never in a position to smell it, or I didn't have the time, I wasn't in the mood, I would immediately write this off as something that doesn't deserve my attention just because of the presentation. It is a nice glass bottle, heavy glass bottle, and the cap clicks on, but oh my God, come on, bro. Come on with this. Anyway, so there's a tester out of this, and for for craps and gigs, I was like, you know what? Before I get out of here, I was like, can I smell that Club de Nuit? And you know, I'm saying Club de Nuit Intense, you know, and I'm sorry, I'm like Club de Nuit Intense Man, that one right there. And he's like, yeah, sure. And he takes it off the shelf, sprays it on the card. And I didn't want to like this fragrance. Guys, gals, people, I did not want to like this fragrance. I dropped so much money on Creed Aventus. That was the pinnacle of fragrance for me. It was the pinnacle of fragrance. That was the best thing. That 16H I wanted. Oh man, like get out of here. You know, and there's even better ones than that the further back you go. And I didn't want to like it. I wanted to smell it, and I wanted to be like, oh, I know what these cats are talking about. This is garbage. Get this out of my face. Because all I had ever heard or read about it was, oh, the opening it smells like lemon pledge, and it's really smoky and off-putting. The opening is terrible. Oh God, it's not even close to Aventus. Blah 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 blah. That's all I'd ever heard, and I bought into that. I didn't want to like this fragrance. I didn't want to like it. But when he sprayed that sucker on that card and I went like this, I smiled. From ear to ear, I smiled. I smiled the kind of smile that I had when I smell a really good Aventus. And I'm like, and I start laughing out loud. I'm laughing in the store. He doesn't even know what I'm laughing about. I'm like, and I'm just like, get out. You know, and I'm pulling it away, get some air, you know. Get out of here. What? This is hilarious. I'm looking at the guy, I'm like, this is hilarious. I was like, they nailed it, you know? And I'm like, I was like, and then I told the guy at that moment, especially upon the opening, because that's all I was able to access at that moment. And after having heard so much crap about the opening, and then me to smell that and be like, that's a freaking Aventus, you know? Like, I was like, all right. I told the guy, I was like, listen, just out of curiosity, I know what I can get that fragrance for online, because I did. How much are you selling it for? And with those words, he said, and I'm not going to imitate his accent. I don't want to be disrespectful. But yeah, he said $49. He said normally $90. But we are having, sorry, I even lapsed into it. He's like, we're having a sale, and it's for, you know, whatever percent off, and it's $49. And I said, $49 for this. And he's like, yes. And I was like, I'll buy it. And I bought it. Came home. So I bought Club de Nuit Intense Man, because even in the store, I was like, this is awesome. This is closer to Aventus than Mont Blanc Explorer, in my opinion. Closer, especially the top, which is bizarre. Most people are going to be like, you're crazy. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And I sprayed it on I waited till I got home, you know, I'm not opening it while I'm driving, all that kind of stuff. And I'm 38 minutes from home, 40 minutes from home, whatever. Finally get home, you know, and I spray it on my arm for my wife, and I'm like, hey babe, what do you think? You know, and you know, my wife, you know, it's either spicy and she doesn't like it, or it's nice. Like, those are the only two things that I'm gonna get out of my wife. And if it's nice, then we're good to go. And if it's spicy, she's gonna hate it forever. And spicy for her is like, this ranges the whole thing. It can be like, you know, really piney and sharp, and it's like, that's spicy. But it'll also be like peppery, and then that's spicy too. It's funny. But she's like, yeah, you know, that's nice. And I kid you not, I didn't even apply it to myself. You know, I unwrapped it, I saved the box, you know, as I always do. And I put it in my cologne cabinet, and I take a shower, and I get out of the shower, and I'm just like, just to see if I can still smell it on my skin. I'm going like that, and I still smell it. It's faint. It's faint. It's not as much. I took a shower, but I'm still smelling it on my arm, right? And this is after owning 19 YL1N and a legit Creed Aventus that, you know, $300 and some that was gone like that. Even on clothes, gone. And I'm like, okay, this has potential. And so the next day, I go ham on it. I'm hamming it. I'm like, I'm going to see what this is like throughout the whole day. And I'm going to see if this, the longevity, the projection, the performance in general, I'm really going to take this. I'm going to go all day. I sprayed it on, it's 7:15 in the morning. 2, 2, 1, 3 on the shirt. And as they say in the Aventus Addicts group, both necks. I got both necks. Anyway, both necks. I took it to the whole day, and I'm doing my workout in the evening. This has got to be 5 or 6 o'clock, and I'm radiating it. As I'm laying down, doing my leg lifts, and I'm smelling it. I'm like looking down. I'm doing my leg lifts, with my weighted ankle weights or whatever, and I'm still smelling it. It's like 12 hours later, man. I'm still smelling it. And my clothes, if I dug the shirt that I wore 2 days ago out of the hamper and I put it up to my nose, I would smell it. Okay? So the performance is excellent. Now, the one thing that I will say, and I did this, I was going to make this video last night, but I wanted another day or another evening of wear and really try to track it through the fragrance and really try to see how it evolved and where it rang false and where it was close and stuff like that. And all I can tell you is that there is a moment in this fragrance where I know where there's a note that rings false. There's at some point in this fragrance, there is a note, there's an aspect, a characteristic, a whiff, whatever you want to call it, that rings false. And for me, it happens right after the opening as it's transitioning into the dry down. So in that little intermediary stage between the opening and where it starts to in its dry down, there's a false note. There's a falseness to it. I can't even describe it for you. I wish I could, but there's something about it that's I honestly I can't even put it into words for you. But somebody who knows Aventus, I know I can smell it. I can smell it. Whether it's a chemical-ish thing, too much. Whatever it happens to be, not using as much naturals, I don't know. But there is one little aspect for a very ephemeral, brief amount of time where it rings false. But that's for me. That's somebody who's in my humble opinion, I'm pretty trained in freaking Aventus. There are dudes that blow me out of the water, but I know what I'm talking about. But honestly, that lasts for, I don't even know how long, less than an hour, way less than an hour. And then you're into the dry down, which is where it really shines. I mean, get out of here. I wore it all day when I was wearing it at school. I felt like I was wearing my 2016. I felt like I was wearing my 2016 Aventus. And you can see my animation about how excited I get over good Aventus. It's beautiful. And that's what I felt when I was wearing that, man. And honestly, yeah, like I said, there's that one instance where it rings false. And if somebody who really knows Aventus, maybe they're going to pick up other things in different spots or whatever, but that's where it rang false for me a little bit. But it recovers, it moves into the dry down, and it becomes great, And I'm telling you what, man, if for people who can spend the money on Aventus, go for it, buy your bottles of Aventus, I don't know what they're like now. I don't know what anything is like after 19Y01N. I don't know. I don't know what they're like. I don't know what the 20s are like, 21s, 22s. I don't know about any of that. I haven't smelled them. I've only heard horrible things. And I saw the trend as it was starting to happen, even with the formula. And it's just, I guess my suggestion, if you're going to do that, right, if you're a baller, you can go search out those scents, those older batches, and get those bottles. If you're somebody who has a couple bucks to spend and you could pay, you could buy a randomized bottle from FragranceNet, or go to Neiman Marcus or some other discounter or whatever, and spend $350 or whatever on a bottle of Aventus. And that if you're in that category where like that's a little bit of a stretch for you, my first suggestion would be, if you're dead set on getting Aventus, join the Aventus Addicts group on Facebook and just observe things for a while. See how things work, make some comments, make some connections, and then get a little decant of Aventus. Try to find an earlier year. You're going to pay more money for it. and go that route. But I would never tell anybody, unless you have massive money, if you're a normal human with normal means, I would tell you to not buy Aventus. If you're gonna get it from, if you can't choose which batch you're getting, if you can't determine the year that you're getting, I would tell you, don't spend your money. Do not waste your money on Creed Aventus from a discounter right now, or from a department store, or anything like that. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. As somebody who's, I mean, do whatever you want, but that would be my suggestion. And my suggestion instead, in all honesty, would be to get this. And I hate that I'm saying this. I hate it. I hate it. I don't like this. I've been through too much to enjoy this, but I enjoy this. This is what I would tell you to get. I would tell you to get this. And I would tell you to order it online, and you can get it for like $35, $40, whatever. And it's 100 mil. And this is, and also for you freaks out there who care about, batches for freaking Club de Nuit, this has the black cap and it's made in France. I don't know what that means to you. I don't really care. But for those people who do care, that's that. Yeah, that's what I would tell you to do. And honestly, as somebody who, was a perhaps a more than moderate connoisseur of Aventus, if I may call myself that, knowing full well there are people who have more means than I do and are more into it than I am. That's what I would tell you to do. And I didn't want to like that fragrance, but I'm wearing it right now, and it feels like I'm wearing my 16H01. And I'm gonna smell like this all day, all day, all day. It's freaking crazy. It's freaking crazy. And apparently, and I don't know if this fragrance has gone through like stages or refinements or whatever throughout the course of its life. And I don't know if this is like a brand new bottle or whatever. I don't even think I know how to read the batch code yet. I didn't really pay too much attention to it because it's freaking Club de Nuit. It cost me $50. Like, I'm not looking at batch codes. So with that said, I hope that helped people out. Sure, some people out there are going to be like, this guy's full of crap. Our math sucks, blah, 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 blah. I could just tell you what my experience is, what I wanted to share with y'all. I went on a super long one, so thanks for hanging with me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for even viewing it all. And God bless to everybody. Thanks for watching. It's a Saturday for me right now, so have a great weekend. Thank you for whatever love you give me, and I really appreciate it. I'm going to keep trying to put these out there, and God bless, and take care. Au revoir. À plus. Au revoir. Merci.